So hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today's video is going to be part of my Python basic series, and the topic of this video is functions. Okay, so basically we are going to discuss how we can declare functions and how we can work with them. So before starting any further, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon for further notifications, and let's get started. So first of all, in Python, if you want to create a function, the basic syntax is you use a keyword called as def. So basically def, and let's suppose your function name is func, and then you create these brackets, colon, and now you will write whatever you want to do in that function. For example, if you want to print like hello world, okay. So now if I want to call this function, all you have to do is write the name of this function, write these brackets, and you see what happened. So here we have declared this function, and here we simply called it. Now if I insert another cell here and you call this function from any other cell, then also you see that you will be able to execute the same result. So basically, why we create functions? We create functions to have reusable code. So now this set of lines I can call this anywhere, just call this, and then this line will be printed. Okay, you can use functions to create all sort of things, like you can print something, you can calculate something. For example, if I am calculating like x equals to 5 into 10, and then print, let's suppose 5 into 10 is equals to, and then x. So if you do something like this, so basically all sort of things you can do calculations, you can do some print statement, you can do any logic, and you can use that logic anywhere in your program just by calling that function by its name. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. Now let's go to the next part of the function. So the next part is called as arguments. So if you want to pass some arguments inside your function, then how you can do that? So basically, let's suppose I have this function. This function is doing some multiplication, right? It is basically multiplying 5 into 10, and then we are printing a result. So let's suppose what I want to do is that I take this entire function, but I don't want to multiply 5 with 10. I basically want this function to be customizable. So if I pass any number here, for example n, then I want to basically see the output of n into 10. Okay, so basically what I want to see is that what will be the result multiplied by 10, and that number which will be multiplied, I want to basically pass it as an argument to the function. Okay, so let's see how this works. Now if you want to call this function, the simple thing is that as above, all you have to do is you have to write the name of the function. But if you are passing some arguments, then you also have to pass your argument here. Okay, so for example, now I want to see the output of what will be like 2 into 10. Okay, let's see. So here you see what happens. Okay, so now my output is n into 10 is equals to 20, and here the n which is passed in this function is 2. So this is how you can create your function customizable by passing some arguments into it. Okay, now this is a function with only one argument. You can also create a function with multiple arguments. Okay, let's see if I basically want to create a function like this, but instead of passing only n here, I actually pass something called as x. Or let's say I am passing k and j, and now our output is k into j. So now I am not hard coding any number here. I have not hard coded here 10, or I have not hard coded here 5. I am basically passing two arguments, two numbers here, and I am multiplying both of them, and then I am printing the result. Okay, so now my output will be k into j, and what will be the k and j values? Let's see. So what you can do here is, if you want to call this function, all you have to do is func, and then you have to pass the arguments inside it. So I have to pass here k and j. So let's suppose I want to do 5 into 10, or let's suppose do something like 6 into 10. Then I pass here 6 and 10. And now if you simply print it, you see my result is 60. And similarly, if I change the argument, let's suppose I do 7 into 12. Now you see my result is again changed. So now you can call these function anywhere, any number of times with a different set of arguments, and it will give you the different result. So that is how you have made these two lines of code reusable inside your program. Okay, but let me see one thing. So here we created a function which is accepting two arguments, and we are multiplying both of them. But what if I only supply one argument to this function and not the other one? So what will happen if I do something like this, func, and then I only supplied it one argument, not the other one? You see what happened here? I got an error. So if you declare a function in which the number of arguments are like this, like k and j. So here the number of arguments are specified. Here we have specified that we need two arguments. Now if you pass any argument which is more than the required arguments, or any argument which is lesser than the number of arguments, then you will get such an error. For example, now I have provided here one argument instead of two. Let's suppose if I provide here 3 arguments, then also I will get an error, and this error states that this function takes only 2 arguments but 3 were given. So the point to remember is that if the number of arguments are specified inside a function, you have to provide it exact same number of arguments. Okay, but let's go to another case where you do not remember the number of arguments in your function. Let's suppose you have some sort of implementation, or you want to make some sort of implementation in which you do not want to specify the number of arguments. How you can do that? Let's suppose I created a function called as func, and here what I simply did is that I specified n, and I specified star n. Okay, now what this star n means, that I am basically providing some array list or some list to this function, and this list could be of any size, and that size is unknown to me. Okay, so now the star n basically acts like a list. Okay, let's do something like this. So let's suppose this n is some number, and what I want to print is the second or the third number. Okay, let's say I want to print the third number here. And now when I am calling this function, I am basically providing 3 arguments. So I am providing 10, 40, 100 and 18, 12. So some arbitrary 10 arguments I have provided here. But my function will simply go to the third argument, and this should print the third argument. So let's try this out. So you see what happened. My third argument was 100, and we basically printed the third argument here. Okay, so the thing is that if you do not know the number of arguments in your function, on how many number of arguments you want to pass, you can simply do something like star and the name of your argument variable name, and then you can access it as a list. For example, you can also loop over this variable as well. So for example, I can do something like this: for x in n, so this n becomes a list sort of, print x. Okay, now let's see what happens. You see what happened here. Here, because the number of arguments were variable, I can specify any number of arguments, and then using this for loop, I printed all of them. Okay. Now, if I simply do not provide any argument in this function, let's see what happened. You see, there was no error now, because star means that you can provide zero number of arguments or you can provide n number of arguments. So even if you provide nothing in it, you see this for loop simply didn't get executed because the length of the n was 0. Okay, so this is the advantage of variable number of arguments, that you do not need to be providing the exact same amount and you will not get a compilation error, you will not get an error. Okay, now another concept in case of function with arguments is called as the named arguments. So how named arguments work and why we actually need them. So let's suppose I have a function called as def. Let's suppose the function name is color me. Okay, and here I am specifying some colors. Okay, so let's suppose my color 1 is red, or let's suppose I have 3 colors here: color 1, color 2, color 3. Okay, and this function simply prints out print my favorite color is, and I simply say color 1. Okay, now if I want to call this function, I can simply do something like this: color me, and then just use the name of these variables. So look at it that I am using the name of these variables. So color 1 is equals to yellow, color 2 equals to red, and color 3 equals to blue. And now let's print it. So you see what happened here. It simply printed that my favorite color is color 1. So now you will say, why did we we called our function like this? Like, I mean, if I would have simply done something like this, like color me yellow, red and blue, then also you see my answer was same, right? But why we did something like this, I will show you why. Because something like here, what we are doing is we are printing that my favorite color is my color 1. Okay, now somebody who has written this function knows that color 1 is actually the first argument of this function, color 2 is the second argument, and color 3 is the third argument. Let's suppose I am not that person who actually has written that function, but I know that this color me function will simply print out that my favorite color is color 1. But I don't know the order, right? I don't know that color 1 is the first argument. So what if, let's say, what if I want that my favorite color, which should be printed here, should be yellow. But because I don't know the order, what I did here is that instead of writing yellow, red and blue, I did something like this. I did blue and red and then yellow. So now you see that the line which is printed here is my favorite color is blue, because blue is getting assigned to color 1. But I don't want that. I want that my favorite color is yellow, but I don't know that yellow is getting assigned to color 1 or not. So in that case, if I do something like this, color 1 equals to yellow, color 2 equals to red, and color 3 equals to blue. Now you see that even though the order of my arguments is changed here, because I have specified the name of the variable alongside the value of my variable, it is able to recognize that color 1, even though it is coming in the end, it should be assigned to the first variable. Color 2, which is in the middle, should be assigned to the second variable, and color 3, which is on the first, should be assigned to the last variable of this function. So that is why we need named arguments. If you do not know the correct order of the arguments, you can use these names of the variables to actually specify your values so that your code will not give you a wrong result. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. And now another topic which is related with named arguments is that if you have a variable number of named arguments. So let's see this function only. So if I have a variable number of, so we just saw that if you have a variable number of arguments, we use something called as star n. If you have a variable number of named arguments, then you use something like star 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 and your argument name. Okay, so in that case what you can do is that this star star becomes your named argument, and now you can simply print like this. Like I can simply print my favorite color is color 1. Okay, but you see that I can just provide here any number of arguments. Okay, I can just provide here so I have provided here color 1, and if I want to actually print it, all you have to do is color and then list and this. Okay, so if you just to be clear, if you are creating a variable number of named arguments, then this variable here sort of becomes like a dictionary. Okay, so now this color is like a dictionary. Now if you remember my dictionaries topic, how you can access an element in a dictionary, you will have the dictionary and square brackets, and then under that dictionary you have to specify the key with whose value you want to access. So this is my key and this is my dictionary, and whatever named arguments you will basically send inside this function, those named arguments will become the keys of this color dictionary, and you can access them using this. Now if I simply increase some more elements like color 4 equals to color let's say purple, then also my function will not give me any error, because my function is having a variable number of arguments. But if I would have done the same with this function, for example, if I would have done here something like this, color me, and then I would have passed here color purple, then because this function is taking a specific number of arguments, you see I would have gotten an error that you have an unexpected keyword argument named color 4. So that is why it didn't work with this function, but with variable number of arguments it actually works. Okay, I hope that is clear to you. Now because now you know about the variable number of arguments and about the name argument, there is something which is called as a default argument. So let's suppose I have this function color me with it. Let's take this function, and I created a function which is only taking one argument here, which is called as color 1, and I am saying that my favorite color is color 1. Okay, now somebody calls this function. Let's suppose I am calling this function with yellow. So you see that the line printed here is that my favorite color is yellow. But let's suppose I simply forget passing any argument. Okay, now you know that if the number of arguments are specified and you don't pass any argument, you will get an error. But I don't want that error. I want that if I do not specify any argument inside my function, then some default value should be assigned to my variables. So that means if I do here equals to and some default value, for example purple, then if I pass no variable inside this color me function, then that default variable is printed. But if I pass yellow here, then you see my result is my favorite color is yellow, because now this value is getting substituted in the color 1 variable. But if you do not want to send any variable, you will not get an error, because by default some value is getting assigned to this variable here. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. and also the use of default arguments. Another thing is how you can create an empty function. So I told you in my last video in which we were discussing about loops that if you want to create an empty loop, all you have to do is write a keyword called as pass. So simply if I write some function called as myfunc and I do not want any code inside this function, then you just write here pass, and pass will just create a empty implementation of your function, and the function will not have any code in it. But it is like that, and if you want to create some sort of template and later you want to complete that function, pass is a very good method to do so. And now if you just write here pass, then you see that you won't get any errors as well. Okay. And the last topic is definitely recursion, and because every function topic is not completed without discussing about recursion. What is recursion? Recursion basically means a function calling itself. Okay, so if your function is calling itself in its code, then it basically is called as recursion. And there are many problems using recursions, for example factorial, for example Fibonacci series and everything. But here I will just show you one small example of calling recursion. Okay, so what we are going to do here is we are just going to print some numbers in their decreasing order. So let's suppose I have this function called as decrease, and this decrease function will simply take a number here, and I will just check here. So in recursion, if you want to, obviously if you think about it logically, if a function is calling itself, it is like an infinite loop, right? So if you want to break that infinite loop, you have to specify a base condition in a recursive function. So my base condition is if n is equals to 0, then simply return n. So in your base condition, you are obviously returning a constant value from your function. But if your base condition is not specified, what you do? You simply call your function again. Okay, so I call my function again, decrease, and then n minus 1. So here I will print n, and I will just simply return. And if my n is not equal to 0, I will simply decrement it. I will call this function again, and once my number becomes equals to 0, it will go back inside the loop, and finally it will be printing out all the numbers in a decreasing order. Okay, so let's see how this works. And now I will simply call this function decrease, and let's suppose I only want to decrease like 5 here. So you can see that sorry about the logic here. So basically what was the mistake we did? We were printing in the n equals to 0 statement. So in that case, the function will only print the value when the number becomes equals to 0. But what we want to do is that if the number is equals to 0, we simply want to break the loop. But if the number is not equals to 0, we will print our number, we will decrement that number, and we will call this decrease again. So the next time it executes, it will again print the second largest number, and it will again decrement the value, and it will continue to do so if the number is not equals to 0. Once the number becomes 0, we will simply return from the function. So let's call this decrease function again, and let's call here 5. And now you see what happened. So we are basically printing all the numbers from 5 to 1 in a decreasing order. So guys, that was about recursion, and I hope it is clear to you. I hope you know about the variable arguments and the named arguments and all other concepts. So if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon for further notifications. Stay tuned for next video. Thank you so much everyone, and bye bye.